Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's time now to review headlines on today's newspaper with the Ombudsman of This Day and Arise Media Group and This Day Newsday Limited Group Executive Director, Kaide Komolafe. Good morning, KK.
Good morning, Adiswa.
Good morning, KK.
Good morning, Steve.
Good to have you around.
Yeah, great to be here.
Okay, let's go into the newspaper review for today. We'll start, as always, with the newspaper of record this day on Sunday. And I think we should take it from top to bottom. The window story says analysts credit drop in petrol import into Nigeria to lower prices offshore Lome, stronger Naira. Dangote raises domestic supply by 25.3% amid delayed import permits. So that's an analysis of petrol importation and the lower prices, lower is relative, but lower prices that, and then, that we're experiencing, KK, if that is your reading of what is happening, of course, we would like to know. The strip story, Fubara, I choose weakness to preserve peace, stability in Rivers State. That story is on page 10 of today's newspaper. It looks like peace is reigning after all in Rivers State. Rivers of trouble is hopefully giving way to rivers of peace. We hope that it will not be the peace of the graveyard. The story beside the first picture on the cover of This Day Today, of course, stems from that controversial interview by the former governor of Kaduna State. The headline says, Presidency demands probe of El-Rufai over alleged wiretapping of Ribadu. We discussed this yesterday at this one. We knew that, we've not had the last of that when a former minister, a former governor, says that, alleges that he knows people who wiretapped the number one security man, national security advisor to the president, and that he was aware that the order to have him arrested and possibly detained came from the NSA. And he did give indication, quite, without mincing words, that, he got information from those who tapped the telephone line of the NSA, even when he was being told that that will amount to a criminal, illegal activity. But he tried to defend himself. Here we have the presidency. I believe this is referring to what Mr. Bayo Onanuga said about the fact that this sort of talks. Some people might say careless. Some people might say a bit outlandish. Shouldn't just be allowed to go like that. But we'll see what the presidency does with this warning. And then the lead story says at Argungu Fishing Festival, Tinubu vows to defeat banditry. Insurgency says staging of festival indication of return to stability. That's on page 5 of today's newspaper. Argungu, of course, as you know, is perhaps the biggest fishing festival in Nigeria, if not in West Africa, and one of the biggest cultural festivals in this side of the world. For that festival to have held successfully, the president is saying that, yes, this is an indication that things are getting back to normal in some ways, and that is an opportunity to also assure Nigerians that a lot more will be done in terms of banditry and insurgency. The last but not the least is a story on page 6. Danjuma commends Trump for drawing global attention to insecurity in the Middle Belt. That story is also on page 6. And then the big picture there, sharing your moment of grief, showing the son of the deceased, Yinka Ojera, his sister, Toyin Saraki, First Lady of the country, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, and then the widow of the deceased, Erelu Ojuolakpe Ojera, and former Senate President, Dr. Abubakar Bukola Saraki, of course, who is the husband to Mrs. Toyin Ojora Saraki during the condolence visit by the First Lady to the Ikoyi home of the Ojoras on the death of Otumba Adekunle Ojora recently in Lagos. And I believe that was actually yesterday. So yes. It's recently by the editor, it's not necessary. If it was yesterday, it was yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
So those are the stories, KK. I believe five actually important stories. The El-Rufai story, as you must have seen, is also the lead on the cover of today's Punch. And everybody's basically talking about it. Is this the pattern that people want to be, that the politicians are dealing with now? If the phone of the number one a security advisor to the president could be tapped, what therefore happens to my phone and your own, and Adesuwa's phone, who is a lawyer, and she can sue anybody.
She can go to court. Yes, I would rather start with the lead story of this day on Sunday. From two angles. First, it's good news, for the Nigerian, tourist industry, and also a basis, for hope, in terms of the efforts by various state governments, and private individual, to show up the tourist industry, that we have the Argungu festival. I quite agree with the way you characterize this, Steve, that it's, such a, an iconic, one, so that if you are having it back, because, there's a time because of insecurity, yes, nobody could even contemplate it, So I think it's good news that it's back and that you're having it, at this time. Also related to that is the part that even the president, was, present, there, and that in itself is a statement. It is. That a certain level of security must have been ensured for the president to even be part, of the festival, And the statement, made by the president of the occasion, is what you'll expect from the commander-in-chief, that is, to raise hope, and also to give assurance, that, parts of the country, be made safe. But so in a way, it's both a story, about tourism and also a story, about security. That is, if you look at what the president said, that is welcome, that is what is expected. But also the corollary to that is that it's also an indication of the challenge that, a lot more has to be done, to reduce, if not, eliminate completely, the ungoverned spaces, the country where you still have, serious issue of security. Because just like the president was in Sokoto, in Argungu, at the Argungu festival place. You also have, these stories, of, attack, by Boko Haram in parts of Niger State, and then you have this video, of those who are kidnapped in a Kwara, being displayed, by the terrorists, and that in itself is, generating a lot of anxiety, and worries, which all boils down to the fact that insecurity is still, the number one, issue, for the country. So just like the commander-in-chief is, shoring up hope, I think that should be matched by, concrete action, by the various, security and defense agencies, to ensure that, insecurity is combated. Then perhaps too, the strip, the down strip too, is also, related, because it's also a security related story, and that is the statement made by General T.Y. Danjuma, commending President Trump, for drawing attention, to the insecurity, to the state of insecurity in this case now, specifically in the middle belt, of the country. But according to him, the international attention, the focus, has been on the middle belt, principally because of the statement by President Trump. Now, when General Danjuma talks that it should be taken seriously, it's one of the most, distinguished general, that the General Army has produced. So when he's talking on insecurity, definitely that he knows, what he's talking about, and that so the weight it carries, is that again, that greater attention, should be paid, to various areas. Perhaps we have to look at look at the various areas in the specific, zones, in specific ways, and know the character, of the challenge. I have to put it, but the framing which General Danjuma is giving is specifically in the case of Middle Belt. But if you permit, still before I round up on that General Danjuma, for me, a statement, it's a huge irony of the moment in which we are. Because 50 years ago, General Danjuma was a strong member of the Muritala Obasanjo regime,
Chief of Army Staff?
Yes, it was Chief of Army Staff. It was Chief of Army Staff. It was the number one army officer, in Nigeria, and that was the regime that time, certainly the anniversary of the killing of Muritala was just 2 days ago, on February 13. Okay. Now, just 33 days before the killing of Muritala, he made this, very famous statement, a statement that will remain ever in gold, for Pan-Africanism, and the dignity, of the African man, And when that statement, that speech, Muritala, yes, Muritala, who was the Africa's come of age, And what was the substance of the Africa of come of age was that Muritala was telling America then that America had no business, coming to dictate, interfere in African affairs, that, that the African has come of age that we'll be able to determine, our own direction, solve our problem, choose our friends, and, our own direction 50 years ago, So a prominent member, a very strategic member of that regime, 50 years later, is thanking American, for interfering. So all it just boils down to is that we need to put, our house in order. The problem is here, and ultimately the solution is going to be for yes, that Nigeria has to solve its insecurity problem. You can get help from whatever we can get. We need the help, but ultimately the task of keeping Nigerians safe, the task of the Nigerian state, fulfilling, meeting its constitutional responsibility, of security and welfare of the people, it is still that of Nigeria, especially the Nigerian state here.
Okay, Punch is even saying U.S. military aircraft drops ammunition in Borno, 50 years after,
three aircraft,
Africa has come of age, All right, so we can go
it's
to
a huge irony.
You have to go to the Sunday Telegraph because there is...
This is Style first.
Oh, sorry, this day Style. Okay.
You have it,
yeah?
Yes, I do have this day Style. This day Style is all about love today.
Okay.
It's not just this.
You prefer the digital edition.
No, this is this day Style.
No, you are giving
this is Style, sorry.
You are giving it
This day Style says a famous and in love couples capturing hearts this Valentine. It also says a perfect season for romance scams. 10 ways to protect yourself from love. 2 sides to
ways to do what?
Protect yourself from romance scams. Now it says love in the spotlight, romance in real life. These couples continue to capture hearts with their commitment, chemistry, and shared dreams. Valentine season always bring love story to the front, while flowers and dinner dates fill the air with romance. Many of us look to celebrity couples whose journeys unfold in public view. I, for one, always advise young and well-meaning Nigerians to never look at celebrity couples for love and guidance. I think the consumption of other people's personal lives as some type of consumable capital adventure, I think it's gotten too much with Instagram, and everything is content and nothing is private anymore. I find it frightening. However, I do like some of the couples here. We have Adekunle Gold and Simi, Banky W and Adesua Utomi, Wellington, and of course Chioma and David Doe. Very interesting there. And also, of course, the article on how to protect yourself from romance scams and from love and people who may manipulate, the vulnerable in order to use them or defraud them in some way or another. Romance scams are quite, quite popular. So these are two sides to the coin. But I always say to people, please don't look at celebrities. Don't put anybody on a pedestal because they look nice on Instagram. I think we know what love is in our real life.
They also look nice on the cover.
They look really nice. They look really nice.
The video on this one, Adekunle Gold and Simi. Who's the other gentleman? Okay, Mr. Easy.
Mr. Easy. Yes, Mr. Easy was at the Africa Prosperity Dialogues that I spoke at 2 weeks ago. Very, very impressive young man. And I think those are the type of things we should be looking at these celebrities for, the type of work, entrepreneurial and Pan-African spirit they carry with them. But maybe not their relationships.
But in matters of love, KK, I mean, there's especially on the day that is considered to be Lovers' Day, there's really little that you can do to advise people, because love. I mean, I read of a celebrity who was not satisfied with just, giving flowers, giving this and that. He had to put his message of love to his partner on a billboard somewhere.
Lekki, I believe.
Well, I don't know where. I'm just I'm just saying that that's another angle to it, isn't it?
Public displays of affection. Let's please go back to serious topics.
It was Arundhati Roy, in the God of Little Things, many years ago, the book won Booker Prize, who said that you can't legislate love, matters of love. People will express it the way, the love. You can determine who's supposed to fall in love with who and how they're, expected to express, their love. How was it for you yesterday, KK?
Great. Great. And I agree with you that there are no prescriptions. On the matters of law, you can't prescribe.
There's no prescriptions, but I think we need to stop making everything about capital and spending and showing and money. And let's go back to the truth of what love is, which is care and support and kindness. Now let's please go back to the Telegraph, the Sunday Telegraph, because the lead story on the Sunday Telegraph is very interesting. Lead story says 2027 APC PGF presidency intensifies search for Shettima's replacement. And the writer there says Northeast may get Senate president, speaker likely from South, international local pressure mount on ruling party over same faith ticket. It will still be tough, says Chieftain. And I'd love to know what you all think about this, because obviously we have a very important situation here, is that we don't usually have one in, one out in our national politics. If there is a change in the ticket of the Tinubu Shettima ticket, and we have a vice president coming from a different region or a different religion, that will also impact how our National Assembly leadership shapes out to be. And so you might have people agitating for different reasons. There's always different interests. Perhaps people want, a northerner to be the Senate president, and, looking at the current Senate president, Akpabio from the South, perhaps people want a shake-up in the House of Representatives. And so they might then be agitating for the removal of Shettima so they can get other results elsewhere.
Well, the beauty of it, before KK comes in, is that, all these things will continue to flower until about June, when the primaries will have been concluded. And, if we still go by the timetable that INEC chairman reeled out last week, except, of course, if... not last week, on Friday, actually.
Yes.
It's last week, yeah. Except that it's a tweak, given the... clash with Ramadan, for the elections. But, people continue to talk about that, the possibility, because of the involvement of America, fortunately or unfortunately in our politics now, a lot of people are thinking that maybe there should be consideration for a Christian running mate to the president, maybe somebody should be picked either from the North Central or from the Northwest, which is why there will be this permutation of the Senate president going to the Northeast. There are others who are also saying that it's not likely that there will be a change. I saw the interview by the Honorable Minister for Culture and Creative Economy. He said that she doesn't think that that's what the North desires at this point, and that Tinubu Shettima ticket for APC should stand, and that there was this similar ulabalu when Buhari was returning for a second time, and people were thinking that he would drop Professor Shibajo at the end of the day era with Shibajo. But then there are also others, naysayers we may say, but then who says that, well, but if you look at Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu's trajectory while he was in Lagos, 3 deputy governors, over 8 years, that who says that he must be stuck, with one running mate. But, again, few months, we'll see how things pan out. KK.
Yeah. Just to say that all these are speculations. Because I read the story, it's not ascribed to anybody, but I'm quickly reminded by Steve's injunction that the editor has the prerogative to determine what story he wants to dish out, he or she wants to dish out to the public. But I just speculations, and I also agree that this will continue perhaps until you have the party primaries,
exactly,
and then various
and then the candidates
emerge, and then it is after that the candidate now will even decide on who is going to be his running mate. So I think we're going to have more of it, and I think it's the nature of the season that we're going to have
definitely
a speculation. But just the only thing that I just have that I find it very distressing, that in 2026 we were talking about political permutations, and then we're bringing in the question of what American thinks. For God's sake, what is the business of America about how parties choose their candidate? It has been 66 years after independence. It offends my nationalist sensibility, that Nigerians could even promoting that because of what America. I mean, who tells America who becomes their president, who becomes their vice president? For God's sake, we should jealously guard our sovereignty. It's very important that we should have self-respect, and self-dignity as a nation. That our affairs will be conducted by ourselves. Nigeria will ask its problems, and Nigeria will solve the problem. So to me, I find it very offensive that the factor of what American thinks in our election is put. Though of course again, people would say that in real politics that in terms of power relation, that if America wants to influence it, that you cannot stop it. But I'm just as a patriot, I'm just expressing my disappointment. That is the situation in which we find ourselves. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. And I think it also ties into a second story on the Sunday Telegraph, which is from the AU Summit. Nigeria must lead Africa in new global order, says Guterres, as the Vice President Kashim Shettima was, of course, in East Africa this week attending the 39th opening ceremony of the AU Summit, as well as Ambassador Tuga, I believe, was also there earlier before VP Shettima arrived. And I completely agree with you that America has no business dictating this, and in some aspects, I do think that some politics is going on here, that people are weaponizing it and using it as an excuse to push their own agendas, their own political agendas, and saying, oh, it's because America does not want Muslims, that's why we should change it. But what America wants, as you said, in the year 2026 should have no impact and no importance on our internal democracy and our machinations on our politics. But that's not how we see it. But that's not how we see it for a lot of the world now. And in a world that's becoming more interconnected, where American influence it's shifting this multipolar world order. The soft power has weakened in recent times. Nigeria also must think about how it is positioning itself on the continent. And when I go out and speak to other people from across the continent, that's the question. Where is Nigeria? Where is the Nigeria that funded ECOMOG? Where is the Nigeria that led ECOWAS? Where is the Nigeria that stood up when they said that Africa has come of age? Nigeria was standing up for Angola. That is the question that a lot of people are asking. In this new multipolar world order where we see Canada, come to some form of leadership, we see Brazil try and take a position in South America, we see the Qataris and Saudi Arabia try and, position themselves as the EU is also shifting relations. The question that some Africans are saying is that we see Mahama in Ghana, we see Ramaphosa and the G20 in South Africa. Where is Nigeria?
Absolutely. I agree with you.
All right, the other part of the on the cover of Telegraph, which this one you didn't mention, is the fact that Professor Utomi has been talking. We have him on the cover of Telegraph. It says that Nigeria would have been different if Ekweme Falai had won in 1999. And then he's saying that part of the problem of the country started with Obasanjo's presidencies. He's accusing practically everybody, accusing APC, declares Buhari's era disastrous. On the cover of Sunday Punch too, he's been speaking, and he says at 70, I won't stop joining protest for good governance. I believe that, maybe this is a way of celebrating, a milestone. And he said at 70, I know no fear. I can say it as it is, and these are my views. Still on the cover of Punch, so that we can wrap up with all of that, how 36 Nigerian youths ended up in Russian-Ukraine war. That should be concerning to the authorities, given that, Nigerians are now dying in a war that is not ours. 36 of them, how they ended up. And then, which other one is there? Opposition predicts implosion as APC set for convention. And then sadly, Niger bandits kill scores, burn houses. That's also on the cover of a few other papers. On the Vanguard says terrorists on the rampage, kill 26 in Niger, burn police station, abduct scores. So as American planes are landing in Borno and a few other places, issues are still happening, issues of security in Niger, as we have seen, in Kwara, especially. We're still grappling with these issues. Yeah. Let's hope that the National Security Advisor is not distracted now that they are having his phone, tapped.
I hope not. Yeah, maybe we just take the opportunity to celebrate Dr. Utomi at 70, to say happy birthday to this great patriot and a man of idea, and indeed, for me, an exemplar of what we call politics of ideas. From a very young age, from his 20s, he's been involved, in terms of,
special advisor or something to Shagari.
Yes, when he was in 26 or so.
Yes.
And since then, he's been, consistent, in terms of engagement, at the level of ideas, about the Nigerian condition, providing, perspectives, you have to solve it, Well, you may not agree with him, but you cannot fault him, on the fact that he has, ideas, he has, solutions. So it's an opportunity to say happy birthday.
Absolutely. Voices like his must be encouraged. Even if you don't totally agree with him.
Exactly.
All right. Happy birthday.
It's a genuine patriot.
Absolutely.
We wish him long life, in good health, and joy.
Thank you very much, KK.
Yeah.
It's been a brilliant analysis, as always. Thank you. And of course, we hope to see you on Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, KK.
And that brings us to the end of the morning show today. Thank you for watching, and do stay safe. I'm Steve Ayorinde.
I'm Adeso Agiwa from our entire team here in Lagos, Nigeria. Enjoy the rest of your morning and, of course, the rest of your day. Goodbye.